Martin Heidegger's view of the self is encapsulated within his notion of Dasein. Right? Now, Dasein is a German word, and it's a term of art coined by Heidegger, uh, who happened to have been Jean-Paul Sartre's own teacher. Right? So it's a term of art coined by Heidegger that combines, cleverly enough to give the full thing, the prefix da, German prefix da, meaning here or there, and the German word sein, meaning to be. Right? So Dasein is being, is here being or there being. Being there, being here. Right? It's at once both. Right? Heidegger's view on first brush has a lot more in common uh, with his student Sartre's view of the self as transient, as simply personal identity. Um, it is not, however. Right? It is a substance view, for all that it is the idea of a substance that is constantly on the move, so to speak. Right? Um, so Dasein is the self, right? It is the self, right? But it is once both a self that is here and co-located in the far-flung future, right? There. And the idea of this is that the self has a history to it, a past, a present, and a future, right? Now, that self is constantly changing because we're constantly moving. However, it is still something that is constant, right? Um, so similar to his students, we have the ability to self-determine our character, but how we do this is fundamentally different than Sartre, who thought radical freedom, right? Um, our options, our life, our very being is much like a horizon, right? Um, so and like a horizon, it's shaped by a number of things, including the fact that where we presently are, right, our being here at this point determines the broad scope there, right, what folds out before, what unfolds before us to create the horizon, right? Horizon is a matter of co-location, right? What the horizon is for you depends on where you are. If I move 3 feet to the left, my horizon is different than if I move 3 feet to the right or stay in the same location. And that horizon, again, is always something that's in the distance from us. Right? But um, it's always something that's over there. But this brings us to the second point. Um, what's over there is determined by where here is. Right? Can't have an over there without also having a here to begin with. Uh, Additionally, the horizon is much a matter of perspective, like where our focus is. If you think about looking out at the horizon, right, where, and let's use the traditional understanding of the horizon as the point where where sky meets earth, right? Okay, that's the horizon simply because you're looking to the farthest point where those two things intersect. But if you stay in that same location, in that same place, and you look down, right, down below that point where the sky and earth meet, where's your horizon now? Right? It's the farthest distance of your line of sight, but your line of sight has changed. And therefore, the horizon has changed, the shape of the horizon. So, um, another aspect about this is that it shows that the horizon is itself, by itself, indeterminate. Right? It's not something that's clearly marked. Right? Again, go back to the traditional example or the classic example of looking at where the sky meets the earth. Is it a clearly defined line? No. The only a case in which it's clearly defined, in which the two don't blur together, is if there are objects even in the far distance to mark, the separation. When you go out like towards Odessa, right, where it's just flat Earth for miles and miles, and just look as far as you can, right? The point where Earth and sky meet in that flat, uninterrupted uh, horizon is blurry. Right? There's very little distinction between where the sky ends and the ground begins at its farthest point in your vision. Right? What determines the horizon is, again, where we put our focus. Right? What choices we're making, what goals we're orientating ourselves towards. That's the sense in which Dasein is also a horizon. Right? Our being is being stretched towards time. It's the thrownness. Right? We're not just thrown into the here, we throw ourselves into the far-flung future, right? Or into the future with goals, anticipation, things like that. Um, yeah, that's functionally what Heidegger's view of the self is.